Okay, hello everyone. My name is Crystal Chisel, and I'm Executive Director of the Global Council for Science and the Environment. GCSE was founded in 1990 and has continuously focused on improving the use of science in environmental decision making. And GCSE is interested in supporting interdisciplinary and transdisciplinary environmental and sustainability education and research, and in looking for ways to support program improvement, all with a vision towards solving complex environmental problems. Now, this is a very big goal that no one organization alone can solve. And we know that we have to seek out ways to work together on these problems. One way to approach this work is to see it as a campfire that we can sit around and think together about changing culture and society. Today, we are very excited to be led by the thinking of students and recent alumni of environmental and sustainability programs. So thank you to each one of you for being here today. And we would love to know more about who is sitting around the campfire today. So I would like to ask you to introduce yourselves in the chat and share your name, your role in environmental or sustainability work, and if there is an organization you are affiliated with, please share that as well.
Well, thank you, Crystal. As folks are sharing in the chat, we see that even though this is a virtual roundtable, people are here from all around the country and indeed all around the world. And so this feels like a good moment to remind ourselves that this roundtable is taking place in your place. And all of the places where we are have connections to the indigenous and native peoples of that area. I love this website, which you can type in where you are and it will show you the relationship to indigenous peoples of that place. And all of our universities and institutions have a commitment to not only to acknowledge these relationships, but to commit to action towards healing these relationships. So let's just take a moment. If you have a window that you can look out of, maybe there's a tree or a mountain or a leaf out there. Maybe you can sense your feet connected to the earth. And just take a moment in your own way to connect to your place. If there is a land acknowledgement or a commitment to action that you would like to share, now is also the time when you can do that in the chat. Thank you. Our agenda for today, following our welcome and acknowledgements, I'll be giving a little background on the work in sustainability education that we are engaged with at Global Council for Science and the Environment. Then we have a really fabulous panel discussion lined up for you today. We'll have time for a breakout room discussion, and you'll actually be able to choose which of the panelists you'd like to talk further with, so make notes. And then if we have time at the end, we'll have a little bit of whole group discussion and maybe some next steps. Yes, this is being recorded. Yes, we will share with you some follow-up notes and a synthesis of this entire meeting. So if I didn't introduce myself yet, my name is Krista Heiser, and I'm the Senior Lead and Advisor for Sustainability Education here at Global Council for Science and the Environment. And I made this slide so that I could introduce Alex Ramey. Alex is a program manager at GCSE, and I added our academic credentials to this slide for a reason, because you will notice that my degree is not in sustainability. I have a degree in education and I studied sustainability curriculum, but a degree in sustainability wasn't available to me when I was in graduate school. And that's the case for a lot of our faculty, even those teaching in sustainability programs today. Now, the difference is that Alex is actually a member of this stakeholder group that we're engaging with today. Alex graduated about a year ago with an MS in Global Sustainability Science from Arizona State University. And I'm so excited that Alex is going to be facilitating our panel today. Thanks for that thumbs up. I'd like to give you a little background on the initiative at GCSE. And we're really exploring a transformative program accreditation for environmental and sustainability degrees and certificates. We've seen a real proliferation of certificates and degrees in environmental studies and sciences, in sustainability studies and sustainability science, in climate science, energy, resilience. There's a lot of degrees in this area without a lot of common learning outcomes or programmatic guidelines. So what we've been doing is talking with stakeholders in these programs. So we've kind of gone around the outside of our story map here, and we had a roundtable with colleges and universities and faculty, program directors, the folks who really work in these programs. And then we had a roundtable with employers from across different sectors, including nonprofits, city and county government, corporations, federal agencies. A wide range of employers participated in that roundtable because they need to know what sustainability graduates can do and what they know, think, feel, and do. So today's roundtable, of course, we're excited to engage with students and recent alumni from these programs. And a lot of our work includes developing a framework around key competencies in sustainability education, which you see in our center wheel here. Now, we know that this framework can't be all things to all people, but we hope it provides a useful heuristic for participants in these programs to better understand what it is that we're learning or providing in these programs. And that's what we're talking about today. We strive to center all of this work in justice, equity, diversity, inclusion, and accessibility, making these programs more available to more students and more communities. And our real metrics are water, soil, air, the health and well-being of animals and humans as part of nature on our planet Earth. So that's a little background on this ambitious initiative, and I've been so excited to lead this initiative. We'd like to ask a question, based on all of this and kind of the excitement of coming together today. The question that I have for you is, what's alive for you right now? Maybe what brought you here today? Maybe where did your attention go on that story map? Maybe kind of a uncomfortable feeling or a fluttery feeling that you have, or a question that you're just bursting to ask. And for this question, we'd like to open the Mentimeter. Now, if you've been to one of our roundtables, you may have used this before. There's a couple ways you can access the Mentimeter. You can take a picture of the QR code and then click on it, or you can go right to open a new browser and go to menti.com, put in that code. Alex is switching us over into the Mentimeter, so you'll be able to see right now and also throughout the conversation what's alive for folks in the audience today. So we thought you could use this as kind of a back channel. You can submit up to 5 responses. So as you're listening and something comes to your mind, feel free to share it here in the Mentimeter. And of course, if you're not well situated to use the Mentimeter, you can also just drop things in the chat and we will definitely be able to capture that comment. Thank you. So with that, you can kind of keep one eye on your Mentimeter, and we will move into the introduction of Alex Ramey, GCSE Program Manager, and she will be facilitating our panel discussion. Thanks, Alex.
Awesome. Thanks, Krista. I really am honored to moderate this panel today. Before we move on, I did want to share a thought that's been alive for me over the past few weeks as we've been interacting with our panelists and with our community of practice on sustainability ed. And I think that in the past, it's occurred to me that we've been using this very dated metaphor to talk about sustainability education and careers. I keep hearing, and myself have been guilty of using, this metaphor of a pipeline. A sustainability careers pipeline implies that there is a linear path here from a person's first initial interest in sustainability to their decision to get a degree in sustainability, then graduate and get a sustainability job, going on to a sustainability career. But we know, and I think that the panel you're about to meet demonstrates that this metaphor isn't actually true to reality. In my opinion, this is a myth. And furthermore, it's actually quite hard for us to define the boundaries of sustainability jobs and degree programs and certificates that are floating around out there. So maybe this pipeline analogy isn't really appropriate. So I would like to propose that we use the metaphor of a watershed instead. So a watershed is the area of land that drains to a body of water. And within a watershed, there are no true beginnings or ends. It is fluid. Water moves from all over, from the tops of the mountains to the water transpiring from trees into the clouds, and then seeping into groundwater and running through streams and rivers, and then emptying out into a vast ocean of potential. And then maybe within that watershed, the cycle starts all over again. So I think this is maybe just a framework or a way that we can start to evolve our thinking on sustainability education. Okay, thanks for indulging that. So with that, I'm actually really excited to elevate the perspectives of our brilliant and accomplished panel that we have here today, who have a wide ocean of backgrounds, interests, and futures. I'm going to just briefly take you to our website, and Krista is going to drop the link to this page in the chat. I wish I could go through everybody's individual bios, but we don't have time. So instead, I'm just going to briefly introduce everyone's name and their title. First, we have Rainbow Uli'i, who is Executive Director of Key Project in Hawaii, and who holds a degree, among others, in Sustainable Community Food Systems. Then I'm excited to welcome back to GCSE temporarily Harrison, who is an undergraduate student at Northeastern University and who's studying environmental studies and political science. Then we have Bryce Schiff joining us from Colorado Mountain College. He is majoring in sustainability studies and has a business minor. And finally, we have our last two. We have Autumn Dancy, who is an undergraduate student at Florida Agricultural and Mechanical University, also known as FAMU. And she is studying environmental science. And then we have Lucas Gutierrez, who is a Environmental Defense Fund Climate Corps Fellow at Warner Music Group in New York, and who's also a alum of the Master of Sustainability Solutions program at ASU. Wow, what an impressive panel. Please take a moment, if you can, to visit that page and see everyone's bios. I think it's about time that we start getting into our panel discussion. No, I'm excited to talk to all of you. Okay, so just a quick reminder to panelists, I am going to try to keep us on a schedule today, so I really apologize in advance if I have to interrupt you during your comments so we can get through both rounds of our questions. And now I'm going to go ahead and get started. Rainbow, I want to open today's panel with you. We are so glad that you could be with us today, especially from many time zones away in Hawaii. Something that I wanted to start with is, what I've learned over the past few years, and something that I think Krista brought up just now, is that our place can have a profound impact on our relationship with sustainability. So can you tell us, what does sustainability mean to you, and how has living and learning in Hawaii shaped your understanding?
That is a wonderful question. First off, ano ai kako me ke aloha. My name is Rainbow Uli'i, all the way from Kahalu'u, Oahu. I am tuning in from. And yes, place is a huge component of being Hawaiian. So I am not just from Hawaii, but I am also a Hawaiian national. And here in Hawaii, we refer to place as aina. And if we look at that word aina, aina doesn't mean just your place. It also means the land. It means the ocean, pretty much anything that feeds you, anywhere where you can find food. That is what aina is. And for generations, Hawaiians have built a relationship with aina. Hawaiian culture and religion, historically polytheistic, and involves lots of different akua or gods. And we refer to those gods and worship them in their different physical forms, whether they be water, plants, volcanoes even. I'm sure you all know of Pele. But essentially, yes, so we worship those things and we refer to them as parts of aina and things that we honor and we care for. Even hula itself, a dance form, traditionally was used as a form of worship. And so by understanding that history and understanding how Hawaiians connect with aina, essentially we can understand that sustainability is primary to our culture and to our history and even to our people. In Hawaii, we refer to sustainability as malama aina, malama meaning to care, aina meaning land. So when we're caring for anything that feeds us or caring for the land and the oceans and the sea, then we overall have respect for the environment and for our oceans. And without that, there's no future for our people. And so being a resident of Hawaii, being a Hawaiian national, being somebody who is Kanaka, that's what sustainability means to me. Mahalo.
Well, thank you so much for those beautiful comments, Rainbow. And we're really lucky to get to hear that perspective today. So now I'm going to move on to Harrison. Harrison, it's great to see you again. We couldn't miss the opportunity to invite you back to GCSE to join the conversation today, given the work that you completed with us this past summer on sustainability education. So with the help of another Northeastern Co-op student, Patrick Grady, you conducted a study on sustainability programs for 100 different higher ed institutions in the US, which yielded some fascinating insights. Could you share just, I know it'll be hard, but just 3 top-level takeaways from that research?
Yes, of course. Hello, everyone. Hello, GCSE staff. I'm so happy to be back. Thank you so much for having me back. I've missed you all dearly. And yeah, so as Alex introduced, myself and the other co-op student at GCSE, Patrick, we did conduct a census research report between ourselves on just 100 schools throughout the United States. And we tried to get a pretty even representation of institution type and degree level across all of those schools. And what we found was really interesting, and it was relatively hard to define. But altogether, I think it could be described as an apparent lack of consensus amongst these schools and their programs. And we found that in sustainability and all of these institutions and the respective definitions of sustainability, the way that they report sustainability on campus, their descriptions of their programs, even the curricula itself, when we looked into it, there was a deep lack of consensus. There was a misalignment between these schools and how they presented this information to students. And so, again, we observed 100 schools, and we found that 62 of these schools did not offer a sustainability degree program, or at least how Patrick and I qualified a sustainability degree program, because again, these definitions and these titles are constantly changing between these schools. So it was really interesting as a researcher who approached this as a prospective student to try and gauge what schools might offer a sustainability degree program and one that's relevant to these student interests. So again, while 62 of the schools observed did not offer one, just about 38 did. But as I mentioned prior, amongst those 38 schools, there was a lack of consensus, which made it very confusing and difficult as prospective students to try and ascertain which schools might exactly be offering a precise, that precise program that I might be seeking that matches my conception of sustainability. So those were 2 or so main points right there. And I guess that third, as some sort of summary of those 2, is that it's altogether extremely difficult for prospective students who are, the target audience, the markets of these college programs, websites, of these institution websites. They want to attract students who are interested in these programs, and they want to ensure students that these programs have, that these programs offer material that align with the student interests. And it's difficult for these students to access information on these programs, which points to a misalignment again amongst the students, between the students and these programs, which is difficult both for students and for these programs. So we're really curious, again, at the end of the day, we only surveyed just about 100 schools. It took just about a semester, so if we could have done more, we would have. But both Patrick and I agree that we definitely think that this points to a need to better understand the nature of sustainability and sustainability programs amongst all of higher ed, whether that be nationally or internationally, because it is an international discipline. It's rising in demand. And we think that a new program census across the country, even across the world, is entirely necessary to try to gain a better grasp on what exactly sustainability does entail, at least according to these schools. So.
Thanks for that, Harrison. And thank you so much for the work that you completed, and also for that very succinct synopsis of what was a very rich project, I know from reading the report. And that is very interesting. I hope that the program leaders in the crowd are listening for the difficulties that prospective students might face in trying to discern their programs. So thanks again for that, Harrison. I'm now going to move on to Bryce Schiff. So Bryce, in the past, in GCSE events and at some of our community of practice meetings, we have talked about the ASHE STARS program and and whenever we got to speak with you a few weeks ago, we learned that the ASHE STARS program is something that's filtered its way into your education and also, I think, a part-time job at Colorado Mountain College. So for our audience, can you briefly explain what the STARS program is and then how you've been involved?
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Alex, for introducing me, and it's good to see Krista and Alex again. So my name is Bryce Schiff. I am a senior at Colorado Mountain College in Steamboat Springs, and I'm studying sustainability with a minor in business. I've been doing STARS research for the past 3 years. This is my 3rd year now. And what STARS is it's a sustainable, what STARS stands for is it's Sustainability Tracking and Rating as an Assessment System, which is a fully transparent framework so that colleges and universities can evaluate their sustainability performance based on a multitude of criteria. And it's fully self-reporting. So it is a software system provided by ASHE, which many of you probably know is the Association for the Advancement of Sustainability in Higher Education. So basically, STARS is like a B Corp or a ESG score, but for universities and colleges, which is super awesome. I first got introduced to the Student STARS researcher position 3 years ago through an email that Tina Evans sent out. I thought it was super interesting that I could be involved with this, and I actually thought it was a pretty daunting task, especially because this would be our first STARS report. But I thought it would have many real world applications and experience for me, and I just thought it would be a lot of fun to do that as well. So I ended up landing the position. I'm very thankful that I did, because it has shown me just how CMC works as an institution, the ins and outs of it, and how I could actually apply my learning and degree to, a self-reporting framework like a lot of businesses and other institutions are doing nowadays. What's really cool about this is that CMC is one of the first colleges to have students participate in the STARS report. So with the researcher positions, there's 3 of us. And then we also have a class called Sustainability Assessment and Reporting, which I also took last year. This also works with STARS researchers, and we pretty much just reach out to stakeholders at CMC, asking for certain data points so that we can put that data into the report. So a few things I've learned with that are just stakeholder outreach and communication. These are all vital things that I think will be able to translate into a career for myself. Planning meetings and presenting to stakeholders, I've done quite a bit of that. Data collection, analysis of that data, organization of it, and then entry into the STARS report, making everything nice and neat. Also working with the students in the sustainability 4500 class. It's super cool to, bounce ideas back and forth and then help those students out as well. And then just comprehending super technical writing. There's a technical manual that goes with the STARS report. So just being able to comprehend that and work through it is something that's super valuable. And then also technical writing and having the ability to present ideas and data to people that don't necessarily know what sustainability is or what those numbers or things actually mean for CMC. And then also just wrapping this all up, applied learning for other reports. I've seen some other job offerings that are super cool down in Texas. They have a STARS position opening. There's also a position open at VF Corporation for sustainable assessment and reporting. So I think this has just been a super awesome experience for me in that regard.
Wow, Bryce, thank you for explaining that and also for really walking us through how your college experience had introduced you to STARS through a class, which I think is really cool, then offered the practical experience of working on it within your college, and now you're even looking out to how this is going to help you later in your career, whether it's with STARS or with other sustainability assessments. So that is really awesome. I did also want to just point out GCSE has worked with ASHE in the past. Sometimes they've come in and been at some of our events, because ASHE is also, which stands for the Association for the Advancement of Sustainability in Higher Education. I think someone correct me in the chat if I'm wrong. But they also do a little bit of work on sustainability education and in the curriculum. And the proposal statement on key competencies and sustainability education, which Krista mentioned earlier, was just given a shout out in the Sustainable Campus Index that ASHE produces each fall. And I think, Krista, if you can you put the link in the chat? Thanks. And thanks again for that, Bryce. So now I'm going to turn to Autumn Dancy. Autumn, really great to see you again. I'm excited that you're here. Now, I understand that you have gotten involved in your campus in sort of a different way. You are president of FAMU's Sustainability Club, which is awesome. Student clubs, I think, are an overlooked way for students to gain real-world experience in sustainability. So can you tell us about what you've done as a campus sustainability leader, and then make any suggestions for how other schools might work with their student organizations?
Absolutely. Well, thank you again for this opportunity, and thank you for the question. I'm excited to be here with the rest of you and learn from everyone else as well. But I think the main thing when it comes to environmentalism is, the biggest word for me is impact. So environmentalism is nothing new. As Rainbow touched on, environmentalism is a cultural practice that has been practiced by Native and Indigenous people for, thousands of years. And in the Western world and in America, environmentalism is something fairly new. It was really up until the 70s that people really started, the Environmental Protection Agency was formed, and people really started trying to incorporate sustainability and being environmentally conscious into day-to-day practices. So it's something that's fairly new for us here. And I feel like the reason why it has spread so much, if you think about it, it's only been about 50 years, but environmentalism is such a growing industry, I guess you could call it, because people have been making such an impact in making it so that people who don't think sustainably and environmentally begin to. So as an environmental science major who's around tons of other environmental science majors, and people who are already having that like-minded thinking, we all agree, we all try to incorporate sustainability into our day-to-day lives. But I believe our biggest responsibility as environmentalists and as environmental professionals is to make sure that we're having an impact on people in society who may not think sustainably and who may not have more of an environmental mindset. That doesn't mean there's anything wrong with them at all. It's just, this is a fairly new idea, and it's important for us to try to help to spread environmental awareness with other people who may not think so. So as an environmental science major at my school, when I was appointed as the president of the Sustainability Club, my main mission was not to just have these events and have these community service initiatives to benefit environmental science majors and people who already think sustainably, my mission was to make sure that people, whether it's faculty or students who may not have sustainability at the forefront of their mind, my goal was to impact them to start thinking more sustainably by coordinating events, whether it's anything fun that we do like gardening events, even something as small as that, or even something as big as community service, animal shelter supply drives, campus cleanups for litter. All of that can have an impact to make people think, wow, you know, there's ways that I can still live a productive and happy life and get things I want while living sustainably. We try to make sure to educate people that every small difference you make makes a difference, no matter what anybody says. The less one-use plastic you use, the better you try to improve your diet to be more sustainable. The way that you have your lifestyle decrease your negative impact on the planet is the most important thing. So what we do as a club and what my main purpose is to help not only FAMU students and faculty begin to think more environmentally conscious and more sustainable, but to give them that impact so it makes them want to go forth in life and tell their friends, tell their family, and to make environmentalism a daily practice for them. So I feel like that really is our main thing, is to make sure that we have that impact on people who don't already think sustainably. We want to inspire them to want to do so.
Wow. Well, firstly, thank you for giving sort of the context for how and why you're focusing on impact and touching those people who aren't already part of like the environmental groupie kind of community that you're working with. And that's so important to think about whenever you consider when you graduate, where you might wind up. We are not all in those bubbles of people who share that same mindset. So I think it's great you're getting that experience right now in your institution through your student club. That's great.
Thank you.
Of course. So now I want to talk about another leader, Lucas. Lucas, the last time that we saw each other, I think, was just at GreenBiz in that conference in Scottsdale, Arizona, where I learned for the first time that you were selected for the 2023 GreenBiz Emerging Leaders Program. So firstly, congratulations. I wondered if today you could just tell us a little bit about the Emerging Leaders Program, like what it aims to do, and how programs like that address barriers for underrepresented groups to enter into sustainability careers.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you for hosting this. I think while I was in grad school, a lot of these events really shaped how I understood the field and really like educated me what I wanted to get into as I grew in sustainability. So this is a great opportunity, I think, to just be able to get back into the same community and help everyone grow in that way, I think. So yeah, I was really lucky that I was selected as an emerging leader this year at GreenBiz. GreenBiz, for all those of you that don't know, it's one of the biggest conferences, I think, or like the conference in sustainability. It's like very, very corporate sustainability, I will say. It's for like corporate America to go and show off how they're doing sustainably. I think it's a good mix of people that are trying their best, people that are really innovating, people that are just trying to learn and catch up with what people are doing on all sorts of things. So it's an interesting mix of all sorts of what corporate America is up to, from small to medium, large enterprises, new companies, startups, tech companies, all over the place. That was definitely the focus of what I wanted to get into, seeing how like that's where most of the bad stuff, the impact is coming from, is from corporate like capitalism and the companies themselves. So yeah, the reason I found out about the Emerging Leaders Program through my boss from last year. I was doing the same fellowship with Lyft, and my boss just texted me and was like, "Hey, I saw this, you should apply." And I was like, "Oh, that's interesting. I haven't even I've been to GreenBiz, but didn't know anything about the program." And I just like applied thinking I won't probably get this. This is probably, I don't consider myself like a leader. I'm just like going to school, and like I'm passionate about sustainability and I want to make an impact, but what does it mean to be a leader in that field? And I still feel a little weird about it, but I'll take it in a way. Yeah, it's specifically chosen for people of color, which is great. I think it gives a good opportunity for, I don't know if you've ever been in a lot of these spaces, especially in corporate sustainability. It's Climate Week here in New York, and I was at some events this week, and I think it's, even though it's very focused on diversity, I think simply by the nature of how corporate America has been set up, it's still very lacking a little bit in diversity, and we're getting there, but it was palpable. Yes, I think there were probably like 50 people in that room, and there were, from what I could tell, like 4 visibly, including myself, people of color in that room. So this is something that I think is something that is, important. And as these people are the ones making a lot of decisions, influencing a lot of things in how sustainability rolls out from corporate the side, it's something that really needs to be tackled. So this program is really good. I lived in Phoenix, so I didn't get all the perks, but they fly you out to Phoenix to go to the conference. They put you up in a really nice hotel across the street, feed you for all the days. So there's really no barriers for you to be able to go there, participate in the conference. It's a lot of learning, obviously, from the panels that are there and the people and like what are the trends. But I think the biggest part is the networking. They have like a select networking group that you are able to access. It's all of like the chief sustainability, it's director, VP of sustainability, and like really big companies across the country, the world. So it really gets you like rubbing elbows with people that nowhere like so I'm originally from Colombia, not American. I moved to the United States when I was 14. Left, I'm also Canadian, so it's not that clear cut. It's kind of confusing, but I moved a lot. But I don't have any connections in the States in terms of sustainability, in terms of like vertical mobility in that sense. It's all been very like meeting where I can and connecting as much as I can. So just being able to access those spaces, and it's really up to me to network and really like make those connections. But even just getting the opportunity to do that, I think is really valuable and something that I appreciate. I think it's still in its infancy a lot, like it's growing as a program, but they're really trying to make this like build a community out of it too, so you can rely with other people of color in marginalized communities, that so we can all uplift each other together. I can talk about this a lot more, but I'll leave it at that.
I'm so glad to hear you're passionate about it. And thank you for sharing all of that and for sharing, your personal story. I did want to, this reminds me of a report that GCSE has cited a couple of times from Diversity and Sustainability, the group. They came out with this really awesome report that I think is something like the state of diversity, equity, and inclusion in sustainability. So sorry for those folks if I'm saying the name wrong, but we'll link it in the chat. But it talks about this exact problem. You look around and it's not a very diverse field, and that is hugely problematic. And mentorship in this community building is listed as one of those best practices to help overcome barriers to diversifying this field. So I'm really glad that you could share that about the Green Biz Emerging Leaders Program. Okay, so really quick, I just wanted to remind everyone, we're going to go into another round of questions, but if you feel so inclined to like open up your Mentimeter again and just start typing in some other thoughts and emotions that you're having as we go through our panel, feel free to just use that as a way to record your thoughts. But while you're doing that, I'm going to go back over to Rainbow. Hi, it feels so long since we last talked. I wanted to ask you a little bit more about your educational background. So as an undergraduate, I understand that you earned a double degree in both political science and sustainable community food systems at the University of Hawaii, West Oahu. So could you explain for everybody here why you chose the dual degree program and a little bit about how it worked, and maybe how do these programs complement one another?
Sure. Yes. So essentially entering into college, poli-sci was not the plan. It ended up becoming the main thing I wanted to do. And then attending University of Hawaii at West Oahu, UH West, we call it, there was this opportunity for Sustainable Community Food Systems students, acronym SCFS students, to go ahead and double major or do the dual degree program in poli-sci for just like 5 extra classes. And that was something that I thought was really cool. I just so happened to be taking a water politics class that was cross-listed with SCFS at the time. And we were doing a lot of different service learning opportunities, and I was able to become super involved with building a personal relationship with Aina and learn about how involved politics is with water in Hawaii, which is kind of crazy because the concept of water, or vai, is a huge thing. I mean, vai, which is water is also a term that we use to say that somebody is rich or wealthy. So you can see how important water is in Hawaii. But to also understand how involved politics are around water was kind of appalling. And so it just so happened that that class was cross-listed with SCFS, and I had started becoming engaged with students who were in the program, who are interested in INA stuff, who are interested in sustainability, and that sparked my interest. But becoming more engaged with SCFS classes, politics of food, politics of water, and other things, I learned more about how food and policy go hand in hand as well, which essentially made me understand how the programs complemented one another. Through SCFS programs, I learned a lot about politics, sometimes a little bit more than I did in my poli-science degree. And so thanks to Albie Miles, who is the head of that program over there at UH West Oahu. But either way, it was really interesting to see how many students became more interested in policy through the SCFS program, whereas myself was the other way around. I started in poli-sci and started getting interested in sustainability through that route. So that's kind of the synergy between the two programs, and then also how I got started there. And then I went on to get my master's in urban and regional planning, which was another ball game in itself. Mahalo.
I think it's really cool how you were able to synthesize those degree programs and like really work. I think it sounds like kind of on an individual level to see where the connections were. And it is also really interesting to think about sustainability, but then sort of like the power of politics as the lever to advance sustainability. So I can see some complementarity there. And perhaps our panelist Harrison does too, because he is also a double major in political science and environmental studies. But Harrison, I'm not going to ask you about that. Instead, I want to hear about your activities outside of the curriculum in sustainable entrepreneurship. So we know that sustainable entrepreneurship and sustainable fashion are very quickly growing fields that are in high demand, according to the LinkedIn Global Green Skills Report. Sustainable fashion is like maybe the fastest growing in-demand skill for sustainability. So you're into that. Could you tell us a little bit more about your sustainable fashion startup?
I would love to. Thank you, Alex. Yes, I am into that. I've been into fashion for a very long time now. I think my dad's here on the call, so I think he can attest to the fact that like it's always just been like thrifting for me, buying secondhand, like nonstop. Like that was like the main source of like expenditures for me. It was always just like thrifting. Like it was a bit of an obsession, but hey, it was secondhand. Like I didn't feel any guilt, like whatever. But it's really interesting seeing that passion and like the thrill of sustainable fashion for me evolve into some sort of business venture, especially being that I am a poli-sci and environmental studies student. I'm not involved in business and I never was whatsoever. And being a huge, sustainability and environmentalism guy, I was always very, I guess, withdrawn from the whole concept of business and entrepreneurship. But last semester, I had the opportunity to put my head together with some of my friends in response to it was sort of a task for us students to create a sustainable fashion business that seeks to, again, I guess, increase accessibility to sustainability or make sustainability more accessible within the fashion sphere. And so essentially what we decided on was a platform that we called Wasted, WAISTED. And the whole point of that is to prevent clothing wasted. We found that I think Forbes magazine published this statistic. It is reputable. I don't know where exactly the research was from, but I looked at it all. It's reputable. 72%, thank you, Alex. 72% of college students participated in fast fashion in 2022. And 60% of the items purchased were trashed within that first year of production, that very same year. So it's really honestly quite scary seeing the pipeline from fast fashion shopping and single-use items to straight to the landfill, straight to being wasted. So we sought to try and mitigate that by creating a platform essentially that connects students on specific college campuses, and it creates a campus network of essentially like pre-loved clothing where students can list their clothing and put them up for rent. And other students can rent those items out or exchange those items for their own. Because in college specifically, personally, I wasn't prepared for the insane amount of just specific like functions, like themed events that there are. And I think like, I don't know if anyone can attest to this, but like the amount of euphoria parties that I've been invited to, like Valentine's Day parties, St. Patrick's Day parties, it's honestly quite insane. And then at a school like Northeastern, where there's such a commitment in professional life, where there's also on the other side, students are demanded to have interview outfits and professional attire, and these things are not easily accessible and they're not affordable. So there's a need, there is a demand, especially within Greek life. And so we sought to create a platform that connects students into an on-campus network of clothing, where they can list these clothes that they would only wear just once or twice and then never wear again. They can earn a fast buck from that. And other students, if they have a job interview, if there's a euphoria themed party, if there's something crazy that they don't have the clothes for, they can just rent it out for a buck or two and save clothing that way and minimize overconsumption there. So it's been super fun. We're still trying to get off the ground, but keep your eyes peeled. I'm feeling really hopeful about it. And yeah, thank you for letting me share.
Yeah, and thank you for that. It sounds like really like through this endeavor, you've touched on a lot of different themes in sustainability, right? There's like the systemic problem with fast fashion, and then that's kind of like global in scale, but then you kind of come down to the individual level and systems that we can put in place to help people minimize their impact on this incredibly impactful industry. So thanks for sharing that, and thanks for sharing your creative ideas. So now I'm going to move on to someone else who's also interested in sustainable entrepreneurship. So Bryce, like Harrison, we've talked a little bit about your interest in sustainability for business. And I know you're combining sustainability with the business minor. So could you tell us a little bit about your business ideas and how you're synthesizing what you've learned from the business classes with what you've learned about sustainability?
Thanks, Alex. So we do live in an ever-changing world today. Sustainability is now at the forefront of many business decisions. For a lot of corporations and businesses today, it's a fundamental pillar. So it's a part of their value systems. So with my sustainability degree, I wanted to combine my studies with a targeted minor in business. I thought it would make my degree a little bit more marketable because it's a more precise focus, but also allow me to go into something that I'm passionate about as well. So I have a strong passion for biking, mountain biking, all things bikes. And I thought that pairing my knowledge with sustainability and business, I could offer a fresh perspective on what it takes for a company to become more sustainable. I have learned through my degree that conscious practices like reduction in water usage, waste materials, and energy consumption are not only better for the environment, but also better for the economic side of companies as well. It saves money in the long run and it makes companies more efficient in that regard. So I thought we have to start looking at long-term longevity and profitability for companies instead of just looking at quarterly earnings and how we can make the most profit out of that so we can keep businesses thriving in a sustainable way for a long period of time. Initial investments in sustainable practices are sometimes a sizely investment, but down the road they do pay for themselves and more, I believe, and many companies have seen this as well. I want to share a specific thing. I took a sustainable business class with my degree, which I thought was super awesome. And one of the projects, something that Colorado Mountain College is really good about, is reaching out with community businesses and working with them and real world applications, which I just think is so awesome. So I chose to interview Moot Cycles, which is a handmade titanium bike company out of Steamboat Springs, Colorado, completely made in the USA. They're a pretty small company. I interviewed Nate Bradley, he's the president, and showed me what they're working towards and what they've already done regarding sustainability. So they have a full solar array that provides around 12% of the energy. They put this in a few years back and they're considering expanding. Also have an excellent company culture, which I think is just a super important thing in sustainable business. They promote biking to work, which saves on carbon emissions for vehicle transportation, and it just makes the employees healthier and more productive in general. Productive employees and happy employees are more willing to stick around and continue to do what they love. They also give back to the community through sustainable trail stewardship education. They also give money to trail stewardship in Steamboat Springs, Colorado. They also teach kids how to ride bikes as well, which promotes healthy lifestyles from a young age. It's shown that when you introduce kids to healthy habits from a young age, that they're more willing to continue on with that into their adult lives. They also have apartments on top of their facility, which allows employees to have a cheaper way of living, especially because Steamboat Springs is so expensive to live in. So it just gives employees a better opportunity in that regard. Also, just some other things that sustainable business, that course has taught me and has given me opportunities is we've had people come into the class that are sustainability directors at their companies. One was the director at VF Corporation, which is the corporation based in Denver that works with North Face, Dickies, Vans, and other companies. They're definitely on the forefront of sustainability, and they were actually coming to our class because they want to market to us and present us with opportunities to come work with them for sustainable positions. They're looking for people that are studying our degrees, and they want to make sure that they're going to have people to hire in the future, next 5 years, next 10 years. Just a few things that they're working on. They're working on eliminating all single-use plastic by 2025.
Bryce, I'm so sorry to interrupt, but I do want to keep an eye on the time, and thank you for sharing that. I hate to interrupt. But yeah, what's really interesting is that I think there are a lot of people here who, like in our last workforce roundtable, there were a lot of faculty who are building their programs who are interested to know, are we really teaching students what they need to know in order to enter the workforce? So I think, you've helped provide a great example of that, of a way that a course is tying you directly in with contacts in the field, as well as the skills that you might need to work for those businesses. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you.
Now I'm gonna turn over to Autumn and kind of switch gears a little bit. Autumn, as I think I've mentioned before, a great number of our audience today are faculty and program leaders at colleges and universities across the country and beyond. And through our registration for this event, we learned that one of their top questions was, what are today's students looking for in an environmental or a sustainability degree program? Is it the faculty's research? Is it internships? Is it campus sustainability? So I just wonder, from your perspective, could you tell us what attracted you to FAMU's School of the Environment?
Thank you for the question. I appreciate it. And definitely when it comes to environmental education as a whole, with environmentalism and with environmental science, there is so many different facets that you can go into. There's land quality, water quality, conservation, there's sustainability, there's education, there's such a broad range, there's environmental broadcasting. There's such a broad range of factors that you could go into when it comes to environmental science. So I feel like the main things that students who are enrolling in an environmental science program look for in the school is how many different categories and branches is there within the environmental science department that I can go into. I know at Florida A&M, we're very lucky because me and all my friends within it, all of us have a different focus. Some of us are focused on marine and coastal ecosystems. And so the school provides for them to go on underwater diving trips. There's students that are more into sustainability and sustainability education. So those of us are the ones that kind of have a hand in that on campus. There's those of us that are more into the legality side of it. I know someone that's planning on going to law school to be an environmental lawyer. I know someone that is into environmental agriculture, someone into environmental engineering. There's so many different things to do with environmental science. So that's why I feel as though it's important to make sure that within the school, the environment at whatever university or college it is, they need to make sure that they have professors that oversee a broad range of different things within the environmental science program. There's some of us that are into data and lab research. There's some of us that are into the public relations and education side of environmental science. And so I think it's important for an environmental school to make sure that they have professors that come from different roles within environmental science. There needs to be professors that are more into lab research. There needs to be professors. We have one, Dr. Grag, who is more into environmental equity and equality and justice. There needs to be professors that have kind of had a long career of different facets of environmental science to make sure that they're there to be able to take the students under their wing. I know as someone who is more into I'm a minoring in environmental, or I'm minoring in journalism, majoring in environmental science because I'm more into the public relations side of it. So it's important for me to be able to have that professor that has had a hand in that, which would be Dr. Grag, who has taught environmental justice and equity. So it's important, I think, within whatever environmental science program you decide to go into, that you look into the school and make sure there's professors that have worked in the field of specifically what exactly you're looking to get into, and that those programs are there available for you. The good thing about FAMU is they make sure that they have a broad range of programs within environmental science. There's a lot of different concentrations that you can go into. And from there, you can find internships that can help you identify what exactly you're into, because most students won't know that freshman year. That is kind of something, whatever your skill set and your passions are, grow with you throughout your college experience. So it's important to be able to talk with other students, talk with other professors, and make sure they can kind of take you under their wing and help guide you in the right direction. Look into internships that can help you identify how you can use your skill set and your passions to best serve environmentalism.
Wow. It sounds like, there are two takeaways I kind of got from that. One is choice and understanding this is an incredibly broad field. It's a watershed, right? Not a pipeline. There's a lot to be learned here and a lot of different paths to go on. So it's having the choice, but then also having real guidance, mentorship, leadership to help you plug into those pathways that you might want to take.
Exactly.
So thank you. So I'm gonna move on just real quickly to our last question for Lucas. Lucas, we brought up earlier that you're part of the EDF, or Environmental Defense Fund's Climate Corps program. I know several people who have been a part of this awesome program. And right now you're placed at Warner Music Group. So could you tell us a little bit more about the EDF Climate Corps and how it helped advance your skills in sustainability? So how did this complement the coursework that you already had at ASU?
For sure. So the Environmental Defense Climate Corps, also plug, the government just came out with, like, Biden announced like a publicly funded climate corps. So take a look at that too, if for opportunities to, get some work experience in that too. But the EDF climate corps is like the idea of that, but not government funded. It's through an NGO. They place you with, depending on your priorities, either with a government agency, with an NGO, with a corporation, whatever your preference is, to work on a sustainability aligned project. And there's everything from, greenhouse gas inventories and setting targets and, measuring, a lot of data analysis. Then there's the side of EVs and, modeling for electric vehicle, I don't know, putting them out there. There's equity focus, there's food justice focus. So there's a lot of different focuses depending on what there's a need from the company side. So there's a list of 100, 150 different projects. You apply without knowing what the projects are. They look at, what you have experience in, then you kind of choose what projects align with your values and what you want to do. And then after that, you hopefully get matched. And it's a 3-month, it's 10 to 12 weeks. They pay you. It's good. It's not like an unpaid internship. It's a good internship.
Yeah.
I think sometimes, so this is my second year doing it. Last year I did it at Lyft. This year Warner Music. Lyft gave me even like dental versus Warner, they didn't even give me anything. So it's a bit here and over there, but they're still paying me, so it's okay. It's good experience. And I think there's 2 things that I really took away from just Climate Corps as a whole, and this is pretty reductive, but I think it gets to the main part of it. The first one is community. They really try, actually 3 parts. First one is community. Definitely try and make it so you're part of a cohort, right? You get to meet people. It's mostly on Zoom because it's all across the United States, but they also try really hard to do like local meetups. So like maybe once a quarter, like every 3 months or something, there'll be like a New York meetup, and they have like funds. So we all go to like a restaurant or a bar or something, and we all like, network and mingle, and you get to like know people. So at the event I was yesterday, I saw somebody from the Climate Corps communities. So we talked a little bit. So you really get to grow in a lot of ways with these people, which is really good. The second part is education. They train you. There's a training week before the fellowship starts. So you learn about, depending on what your focus is. So for example, I'm right now working on greenhouse gas inventories, setting targets, ESG reports, that sort of thing. So they teach you the basics of like the greenhouse gas protocol. How do you set a science-based target? All of these things. I don't know what the specifics are for other things, because I haven't participated in those, but they definitely do try and make sure that you have all the tools necessary to be able to do well in your fellowship. And then the last part was just experience. The fact that while you're in school, I will say this is only for grad students at the moment. Just to put that out there, but it gives you experience. A lot of people that I went to school with didn't have as much exposure to like hard, experience working in a company, doing the things that you're then going to be hired to do. So being able to graduate with already, like an internship at Lyft on top of like what I did in school as well, really, I think elevated me to be able to get this again. But moving forward, I think I'm feeling good about, getting a job and being able to go where I want to go, not just like get a job because, but it's more about like going where I want to go, do the impact that I really feel passionate about. And I think, honestly, I don't know if without doing the fellowship, I would have been able to be where I am right now. So
wow. That's a really powerful plug for the EDF Climate Corps.
Yeah, no, I think it's
student out there.
Pretty substantial.
Right. So it sounds like, in addition to we have schooling at ASU, really like you needed that work experience, which I think a lot of our workforce roundtable, that was one of the big takeaways, is that employers would love it if you just already knew what you were doing, which seems impossible, but then programs like this do exist. So I think we're going to have to wrap it up for our panel discussion right now, but we do have a couple of questions. Well, firstly, thank you to our panel, just virtual applause from everybody. But we do have a couple of questions that we do want to ask our audience, recognizing that we have these awesome students and recent graduates who are on our panel. I do also want to say there's a bunch of students who are in our audience at the PhD, master's, and undergraduate level, maybe even some before that. And we have a couple of questions that we would like to ask you. So I think I'm going to pass it over to Krista.
Sure. Thanks, Alex. So Alex is going to bring back up that Mentimeter slide. But if you're already in the Mentimeter, you can just advance to the next question. And this question is only for the current students and recent alumni, including our panelists and folks in the audience. And we have 2 questions for you before we go into a short breakout room. And the 2 questions are, first, what was the most important thing you learned in your program, or the most important experience in your sustainability or environmental studies program? And I'll let you enter some responses there. And remember, this is only for students and alums, because yesterday in our community of practice meeting, which is where we chat every month with program directors in environmental and sustainability programs, we asked the same questions to the faculty, department chair, director types. So we're hoping this might be an interesting point of comparison.
I just wanted to say that whenever I brought this up on my phone, I did have to reload my screen. So if you're not seeing the right question, then you might be able to advance it, but you should also be able to just refresh.
And then we have one more question if when you're ready to advance to the next one. Maybe it wouldn't surprise you that we're hoping that this is a good space to be able to share, what do you wish your program would have offered? So again, at GCSE, we're interested in, holding these conversations with different stakeholder groups so that we can learn the best leverage points at all the areas of this education to career watershed. Where are the best intervention points? We know there's a lot of ideas and a lot of things we could do. Which ones are going to have the most impact? So thanks, everybody. You can continue to populate that Mentimeter. And I do have breakout rooms also set up for us. We're only going to have about 10 minutes. And of course, we've lost a few people at the top of the hour because that always happens as everybody has a Zoom every hour on the hour. But I'm going to go ahead and open breakout rooms. Thank you, breakout room participants. We're going to run out of time to really be able to bring this all back together. But Alex and I were talking about how we wanted to kind of close this roundtable. And Alex has a last question, which we won't have time to address, but it really kind of follows, I think, from what Darren just shared about the choice to continue for 10,000. Did you say generations or years? Generations, yeah. So I'll leave that to Alex. And again, we're just gonna give you the question and let you take it with you.
All right, I posted it in the chat because it is lengthy, but I thought the context was really helpful. This came in our registration, so thank you to the participant who sent this in. I am going to read it briefly. I am critical that a lot of sustainability education focuses on the challenges and problems, like why the world is falling apart, rather than foregrounding empowerment and solutions, like how we can effect positive change. Or if empowerment and solutions are foregrounded, they focus on individual actions, like not using plastic straws or driving less. So the question is, does my statement resonate with you at all? What did you find most and least effective in terms of how sustainability was taught to you regarding challenges and solutions? So like we said, no time for every person in the room to answer that question, but I think maybe we can squeeze in one or two comments if anyone has a response.
Take a stab at it. Arriving very late to the party with all sorts of apologies, but
happy to have you, Vicki.
The biggest problem facing the current generation in many of their minds, it seems to me, and I don't disagree, is climate change. It's a problem that will only yield to a global solution. And it's a very difficult, you can estimate what solutions might look like. The IPCC has done that, but it's such a big thing to swallow, and there's so many moving parts and so many actors. I think that having to jump straight to the global level is hard, both for students and for instructors to try to cope with.
I share that feeling.
Spoken from a wise owl. Maybe one more comment on this problem solving.
So if I can interject, like the paper straws are abstract. I don't think anybody on social media has actually made a paper straw or a plastic straw for that matter. But here in Hawaii, many people do say that they're connected to the land because they're barefoot in a taro patch and they can feel the presence. They're listening not just with their hands. They're listening not just with their hearts. And so that it has a backbone to it. It has place-based learning has an actual value, and farmers have known that for generations. And that's why we have almanacs in Western tradition, and that's why we feel such a connection. So that all those things of despair and time go away when you're working really hard.
Wow. I love that.
Sorry, Krista. I just want to cockle what Darren said, because I think that that's exactly what I was saying in our breakout room is like the importance of getting folks involved in sustainability comes from, I mean, here in Hawaii, it comes from the connection you have with Aina. Like if that connection is not there, essentially, and you're not barefoot in a taro patch or a lo'ikalo, then there's not this understanding of like, that's what feeds me. My kupuna, my ancestors have been doing this for generations. I should honor this, respect it, and care for it.
Exactly. And recognizing that planet Earth has its own intrinsic value. And, you know, I feel like a big reason why people may not think sustainably or think, one could say, ethically about the planet is because they really don't recognize the fact that everything on the planet, from the plants to the animals, whether it's biotic or abiotic, everything on this planet has its intrinsic value because it's a part of our global ecosystem. It's a part of how all of us have life. So I feel like once people possibly start looking at it from that point of view, they'll realize that, you know, even the small things like a paper straw actually do have an impact. You know, they'll start to think, because the main quote I heard that really changed me was, it was about this little girl who, I guess there was a low tide, and so there was a bunch of starfish stranded on the sand that weren't able to make it back to the water, and so she was throwing them back into the water, and I guess someone came up to her and said, why are you throwing those starfish back in the water? It doesn't even make a difference really on a big scale. And she threw one back and she said, I just made a difference to that one. You know, like even on the smallest level, since Earth, all of its organisms have this intrinsic value, even something small really can make a difference, even if you can't see it.
Oh. Krista, we don't need closing comments. Our audience and our panelists have done it for us. What's the boring stuff that we need to tell people before we close?
Oh, right. Stuff like, yes, you will receive this recording. Yes, we will provide a summary and synthesis of some of the many comments here today. Yes, we will share the Mentimeter results and kind of compare those with what our faculty and program director stakeholder groups have told us. Yes, our workforce roundtable recording is also available, and we'll hope to connect with that group as well. We'll synthesize the chat. We'll get Harrison's report ready to share. And we would love to also include some of the 30, I think, questions that we received from the registrants. So we tried to build a lot of those in today, but some of them we didn't. So we'd also love to maybe follow up with you and ask some of those questions in a brief, just a one-time kind of follow-up survey and mini evaluation of today's roundtable. This was a wonderful event. I heard so much and I felt so much, and really appreciate all of our panelists. Wow. Thank you so much for being here. And thank you, Alex, for putting this together so well.